Well, hi everyone. I'm recording this video on Thursday, October 9th, 2025, and I have more documents from that trove of information that was provided by WJE to AECOM, and AECOM shared the information with the other defendants involved with this lawsuit by Rhode Island state government regarding the Washington Bridge. So this is a voluminous amount of data, and it's not easy to go through. It's not really searchable to any large degree. There's a lot of repetition. There's files that just contain a bunch of weird ASCII characters. So I've been going through it the last few days here. Once I received this information, I mean, there's thousands of files here. This is all related to the bombshell Jenny Elsner forensic analysis report about the Westbound Washington Bridge. In particular, it includes an evaluation of the broken post-tension rods that led to the immediate closure. I say immediate, uh, somewhat delayed closure after a period of a few days of the Westbound Washington Bridge back on December 11th, 2023. Now, I've covered aspects of this report in two previous videos, and what I want to do in today's video is go through more of the background. What was going on behind the scenes while this report was being compiled? And I want to acknowledge that I received this information from a source with what's going on in Rhode Island. I really appreciate it. So for today's video, we go back through these background emails, and as I suspected, Write-Up director Peter Alviti is pretty much a minor player here in terms of mentions in the emails and reports. Person from Write-Up that has much more involvement is John Price, the state bridge engineer. And then we have Michael Brown with WJE. He's a senior engineer in their forensic department at Jenny Associates, and he was involved in the communication with Mr. Price and others as he led up the effort to perform this forensic evaluation for the state of Rhode Island. And as you might suspect from recent comments that Governor Dan McKee's made, he was involved in the background in the preparation or the efforts that led to the preparation of this forensic evaluation report. Now, as we know, that forensic evaluation report from WJE was dated April 5th, 2024, based on the emails from Michael Brown to John Price. There appear to have been earlier drafts, particularly back in February 2024, of this report, and there appears to be no final version of this report that exists for some reason. Now, here's the email transmittal of this draft forensic report to John Price with Rhode Island DOT. Mr. Price, enclosed, please find the draft report of WJE's forensic audit of events preceding failure of post-tension PT tie-down rods at Pier 7 of the southbound I-195 Washington Bridge North Structure 700. We welcome any questions Write-Up or the governor's office may have and will finalize accordingly. So to me, that's odd. Why do you need comments from the governor's office on a forensic evaluation report? The governor's not an engineer. He doesn't have anybody on his governor's staff that's an engineer, as far as I know. Going through these emails, you can see there was tremendous pressure placed on WJE by Rhode Island DOT and by inference, the governor's office, for them to produce this forensic evaluation report as quickly as possible. You see emails like this. I mean, they're working very diligently. They're pushing. They talk about this is an email from Michael Brown to some key staff, his metallurgist, looking at these post-tension rods. Says, yes, this is a politically charged scenario, and they are under significant pressure from the administration and the legislature. So WJE had the expectation that their forensic evaluation report about these post-tension rods that had broken would be made public, and would be made public as quickly as possible. Again, this email shows how much pressure was applied to WJE for a quick turnaround on their evaluation. This email here: thank you for keeping me in the loop. Our client, Mr. Price of RIDOT, has asked me to provide a daily update of progress in our investigation. To that end, I would like for you to also give me updates on your portion of the investigation. This could be just a short email summary of items underway and completed and any interim findings. Would an update before noon each day be reasonable? So RIDOT wants to know every step of the way what WJE is going to have in their forensic evaluation report. Now, I can understand the curiosity factor here, but if you want to hire an outside expert to come in and evaluate forensically what happened with an engineered structure like a bridge, I think you should be hands off and be apprised as they're producing or nearing the production of the final version of their document. But I don't know why, aside from political reasons, why the DOT and by inference, the governor's office would need to be this heavily involved in the production of this report. Again, another email showing WJE's metallurgists having to work weekends to try and get this forensic evaluation report out as quickly as possible. In this trove of information that I received, there's some emails, incoming emails to WJE from John Price with RIDOT. I'm just going to play a couple of these just to show you how persistent RIDOT was in keeping tabs on the progress of this report.
Hi, Michael. This is John Price from Rhode Island DOT. I was just calling to see if you could, you had a approximate schedule, and I wanted to make sure that everything went well for the extraction on Friday. If you could give me a call back, I'd appreciate it. I'm going to try your mobile number. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye.
Okay, the extraction he's talking about was the sampling of the post-tension rods that occurred at the bridge site in January 2024. Let's play this next clip.
Hi, Mike. This is John Price from Rhode Island DOT, just giving you a call to get an update on forensic analysis. If you could give me a call back at your earliest convenience, I'd very much appreciate it. Have a good day, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
And I haven't included all of these voicemail messages, but you get the feel for the sense of urgency.
Hi, Mike. This is John Price from RIDOT. Just wanted to follow up on the email yesterday. Give me a call back at your earliest convenience. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. Bye.
You know, I think WJE knew all along that all the information that they had, their emails, their voicemails, their draft versions of the report, internal communications would be made public at some point. And there appears to me to have been a great effort imposed by Rhode Island DOT to keep as little as possible as a written record. They were conducting a lot of business over the phone, they being Rhode Island DOT relative to WJE. They were having Teams meetings, but again, as comprehensive as this trove of information is, it's stunning what's not included in there. Information that you would typically expect in the course of compiling a forensic evaluation report for an important structure like this. Now, the WJE people clearly expected that this report would be made public. And they're starting to get the sense in early April through media reports, if not from Rhode Island DOT, but it appears to have been from media reports, that Governor McKee was going to delay the release of this forensic evaluation report. Now, this is what I'm talking about when I say that, to me, in my opinion, Governor Dan McKee is trying to hide the truth about what happened with this bridge. So one of the things I discovered with further digging into this trove of information is not only were there apparently previous drafts of this forensic evaluation report, there was a separate memo on the metallurgical analysis that was performed by Westbound. And this email here is dated February 16th, 2024 from WJE to John Price. But again, this excerpt from the metallurgical evaluation indicates that the broken rods were highly corroded, and it is highly unlikely that these fractures occurred within 6 months of the time the fractures were discovered, though a more precise estimate of time of fracture is infeasible. So the fractures were discovered in December 2023, December 8th to be specific, according to reports from Rhode Island DOT, and Rhode Island DOT and the governor of Rhode Island desperately wanted Wisconsin to find that this rod had broken between the July 2023 inspection, which was the most recent inspection of the bridge that preceded the discovery of the broken rods in December. And Wisconsin clearly indicates, no, these were broken for a much longer period of time. And this is what the governor wants to hide from the public. He wants to keep telling people that he made everybody safe. Well, not really, in my opinion. He was governor for several years before the discovery of these broken rods, which led to the closure of the bridge. Was he making the public safe prior to the discovery of these rods? Of course not. So the way I've pieced this together, this metallurgical report was given to Rhode Island DOT on or about February 19th, 2024. Yeah, here's an email on the 20th from WJE, internal email to their metallurgist, and he indicates, I issued the report yesterday. Please be aware that any of us may be contacted by the media about this report when it's released. Please inform me if that occurs. Okay, so where is that metallurgical report? Again, all I've seen are excerpts in these email exchanges between WJE and John Price with RIDOT. Now let's go back to this forensic evaluation report that was leaked about 2 weeks ago by What's Going On in Rhode Island, and then later posted by Rhode Island Attorney General Peter Nerona. And at the top here it says, unfortunately, records WJE reviewed did not specifically identify the steel used for the rods. And it talks about the working load and a footnote number 5 here. And footnote number 5, forensic investigation of failed post-tension tie-down rods, I-195 southbound Washington Bridge North 700, Wisconsin Elsner Associates, Inc., February 19th, 2024. RIDOT Washington Bridge PT Rod Failure Memo is dated February 19th, 2024. In this trove of information, there's a PDF of the final forensic, well, I say final, the April 5th, 2024 forensic evaluation report, but there's no PDF that I can find so far. I've got more to go through here, but I've looked for this memo on the metallurgical report or the forensic investigation of the post-tension rods, and it's not in there. And again, another email referencing this draft report to RIDOT. So why the separation between a memo and this April 5th draft? And why can't I find the memo in a standalone form? Now, another thing that Governor McKee is trying to hide from the public is that apparently nobody put eyes on these anchor rods for years. In fact, another consultant that was working with WJE, this McNary Bergeron, there's an email from the principal of that firm saying, I spent a few hours this afternoon and went through all the photos from the inspections from 2009 to 2023. I didn't see anything before 2015. The attached file has everything I found that's relevant, FYI. Nowhere did I see the tie-down rods specifically noted in any of the inspections. So again, all the available evidence that I've seen points to the fact that these rods were broken for years, including the time that Dan McKee became governor of Rhode Island. These rods, again, the indication is the rods were broken for several years before the December 2023 discovery that led to the shutdown a few days later of this bridge. Now, I want to go over a few comments that Governor Dan McKee made on WPRO radio, Matt Allen's program on October 8th, yesterday. Now, I just cut out a few segments from this interview. We'll play a few of them here.
Don't try the court case in public, as people are trying to do right now, and those people who don't have the right, they don't have a pure agenda here, are putting at risk and potentially a 9-figure settlement that the taxpayers in the state of Rhode Island deserve. So yeah, I'm fully aware that there's some political maneuvering going on here, and certainly not in the best interest of the people in the state of Rhode Island. And I think that the coverage, the media is kind of, doing that job to a certain degree, but also kind of being misled by people who have a political agenda without admitting it, like you just did.
Okay, he's saying that anybody that talks about what happened with the Washington Bridge has a political agenda. as if he doesn't. He's the governor of Rhode Island. He's now trying to get reelected. And I mean, I think it's shocking. Now, suddenly, both the governor and RIDOT director Peter Alviti are talking about potential awards of $100 million from these defendants in this lawsuit. I don't think that's has any possibility of happening. Again, we know that Rhode Island DOT is ultimately responsible for this bridge. They're responsible for the inspections. They're responsible for implementing corrective repairs. They're responsible for performing maintenance. And we know these things weren't done properly, if at all, over the years before this bridge had to be shut down.
So anybody from state government goes into this hearing, they're going to be put under oath, so there'll be
if they
penalties
put under
if they
oath,
lie.
by the way, it's a little bit disrespectful, but it's happened before. But we'll have attorneys next to the individuals that are under oath, just like you would be in any court proceeding.
Why is that disrespectful?
Oh, well, basically because you're not believing what's being said to them if you put them under oath. I mean, they tried this a few years back on another department head. We let them know, well, we'll bring an attorney in. We're going to have to bring an attorney in.
So that segment's referencing the potential for upcoming oversight hearings from Rhode Island state legislature about this Washington Bridge. And the governor says, well, it's disrespectful to have somebody under oath because it means you don't trust what they're saying. I mean, well, it's just bizarre, I think, the statements that he's making here.
But I'm saying people who are trying to try the case in public are dealing with fire, and my job, Matt, is to make sure that I'm protecting the taxpayers and the people who live in this whole state of Rhode Island, and I'm going to do that.
Well, it sounds like a veiled threat. You know, I don't think anybody's trying the case in public. The public is trying to get their hands on information that sheds light on why this bridge essentially disintegrated over a period of years and then had to be shut down on an emergency basis, and has created untold hardships for the people that have to commute through that area and will for a number of years to come. If you have information or you're trying to get information about what happened here, you have an agenda, it's political, you're playing with fire. I mean, there's no gag order that's been issued by the judge in this lawsuit. So this information can and needs to come out. And the governor is not in a position to do anything about it.
It's all going to come out.
I don't think people believe that. I don't think they believe that.
It's all going to come out. And the reason that this report is put into discovery, now, the good question is who is actually leaking it, and what is their agenda for doing that?
Do you know who leaked it? Do you have a theory?
I don't have a theory, but I do know that whoever's doing it has an agenda,
Obviously, yep.
and we need to kind of find out as much as we can. I mean, the Attorney General mentioned that he thought he knew who was doing it, so the public has certainly a right to that, Matt. They have a right to who's leaking information that could potentially, is tampering with a lawsuit that, by the way, the courts have said they didn't dismiss. They were asked, the defendants asked us to dismiss that case, and they said no. There's reasonable, thinking here that there's a case here to be tried. So we're going to.
Are you putting resources into finding out who's leaking it? Are you going to try and find out and expose them? I don't know. They're breaking the law.
They may not be breaking the law, but they are. But I think the people have a right to know, not just the people who are maybe posting it, but where are they getting the information from, and what is the agenda that those individuals have. It's not in the best interest of the people that I represent, which is the people in the state of Rhode Island, clearly, and there's an agenda for doing it, right?
Wild. So he throws a lot of loaded words out there like tampering. I mean, a jury hasn't been impaneled in this case. Again, there's no gag order involving this case. So there's efforts by people out there to get to the truth. And that's what I'm doing in this series of videos I've done about this bridge. My agenda is to serve an audience, grow a channel, and have a platform to be able to get to the bottom of, in this case, what I think is government incompetence, the government hiding information from the public, information that rightly belongs or should belong in the public domain. I mean, they've chosen, they being the governor of Rhode Island and his administration, to hide the truth from the public. I've said all along that this lawsuit is a smokescreen. If this thing ever goes to trial, it's going to be well after, years after the next election for governor of Rhode Island. A lot of times there's settlements in these lawsuits because litigation is expensive, and there's often non-disclosure agreements that are secured as part of these settlements. I think the people of Rhode Island are correct to be skeptical. I'm skeptical that Rhode Island state government officials have any intention for the truth to come out about this bridge. So instead, they go out and try and vilify people who's trying to get information out there to the public. I mean, in the past, Director Alviti suggested that my making these videos about the Washington Bridge was illegal. He said that on the Tara Granahan show on WPRO. I mean, it's just ridiculous, I think. Now I'm going to leave you with this. If these oversight hearings happen, I hope they're fruitful. The previous two oversight hearings with Rhode Island DOT and the state legislature were wholly ineffective. It was some degree of theater. In the most recent hearing, Director Alviti was given 5 minutes to make some introductory remarks. And as I recall, he went on for over 15 minutes talking about how great a job he's doing at Rhode Island DOT. I mean, I don't expect much. You've got the governor trying to fight any testimony given by people in his administration related to details about why this bridge had to be closed. But, some things never change. And this trove of information was a document February 10th, 1997. And it was a memo written to the file about hearings that were held by Rhode Island legislature with Rhode Island DOT director at the time about the Westbound Washington Bridge. They talk about the bridge maintenance being very expensive. RIDOT doesn't have manpower to keep up with the work. I just want to read some excerpts here. And this is from the late State Senator Roney to the then director of Rhode Island DOT, William Ankner. He is thanking him for his cooperation in the Washington Bridge hearing earlier this week. I know the issues of bridge obsolescence and lack of maintenance came up at the last minute, so that many of the details were not available. When I focused on the issue in preparing for the hearing, it seemed to me that the hearing would, as it did, provide you with a good opportunity to show the dramatic costs of failure to maintain our infrastructure. Yes, boy, did that ever turn out to be the case. Over $500 million projected and counting for the replacement of the Westbound Washington Bridge. This next paragraph, I was concerned, as I know you are, by the absence of maintenance records. I would appreciate a report on what maintenance was done, what maintenance records exist, together with an explanation of what maintenance records should have been kept, as well as an explanation of what steps the department has taken to make sure that maintenance records are now maintained. And this goes on. Now, Rhode Island DOT Director Peter Alviti wants to blame prior deceased governors of Rhode Island for all his problems. He's been director of Rhode Island DOT since early 2015, so over 10 years at this point. And yet all these problems, to me, appear to persist with Rhode Island DOT's administration of their bridge projects. So there's a lot more to come on this story, but I had to get this video prepared and pushed out there because it's almost a full-time job in my view, and I can't do it alone to counter the false narratives being put out there by Director Alviti and Governor McKee about this Westbound Washington Bridge. Well, with that, I want to thank those of you who've contributed to buy me a coffee. That's one of the better ways to support this channel. I also want to thank channel members and those of you who've provided super thanks. Those are additional great ways to support the channel. So more to come on this issue, everyone. Please stay tuned.